Hey everyone, I'm Angie Miller, and in my upcoming episode of Strong Mind, Strong Body, I cover a very powerful and I think a provocative topic in our society today, and it is about AI being your therapist. And I cover 8 reasons why I think that AI acting as a personal therapist is actually a dangerous idea. I give you a lot of support and evidence-based information to back that up. But I really hope that you'll join me in this episode and maybe share it with others because I think a lot of people are turning to chatbots for mental well-being. So I'll see you in the episode. And when you are finished listening, if you would be so kind and supportive, I would appreciate if you would like, follow, subscribe, and give a 5-star review. I'll see you in the show.
Welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body, recipient of a Gold Markham Award for Excellence in Podcasting Content. Hosted by licensed therapist and wellness expert Angie Miller, this podcast blends psychology and fitness to help you build resilience and feel your best inside and out.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. And I'm so glad you're here today because I want to talk about mental health, one of my favorite topics in our world today, but more specifically, where we are seeking support for our struggles. I'm going to guess that you have heard of AI being the quote new therapist and how many people are turning to AI for support, for resources, and for emotional relief and even validation. And I'm going to be honest, I've done it. Partially out of curiosity and partially because one day I was all up in my head and I needed some support. I'm not too proud to admit that. I was between therapy sessions and I thought, I'm going to put this into AI and I'm going to see what it comes up. So I had 2 main reactions when I did this. One was, wow, this is way more intuitive than I expected. And 2 was, wow, this is scary because I just put all my stuff onto the World Wide Web. And once you put it out there, it's there to stay. So then out of curiosity, I did an experiment. I switched the narrative, so to speak, and I added more information to see if it would change the response that it gave me. Specifically, I gave it what I needed to give it so that it would side with me, so to speak. And sure enough, with the new information, AI was all in on how I was right, the other person was wrong, etc. Mind you, the other person's not in the room. See, the thing is, AI can only give you feedback based on what you tell it. And most of us tell things from our perspective. And our perspective is our truth, but it's not the truth. So AI was telling me what I wanted to hear, but not necessarily what I needed to hear. And that really woke me up to the dangers. And I'll tell you more about that as we progress into the show. So the bottom line is I'm a licensed therapist and I've done it. And according to the research, I'm not alone. I'm guessing that some of you have done it. Or maybe you've thought about doing it, or you have people in your life who are doing it because it's quick, it's convenient, it's free, keyword, and it's so easily accessible. But AI is not a substitute for therapy. It's not even close. And I'm going to share why. But first, I want to be clear that I am not here to demonize technology. AI has some genuinely useful applications and mental wellness support. But there is a significant difference between a wellness tool and a therapist. And right now, I think the lines are getting dangerously blurry. So today, I'm going to walk you through some research-backed dangers of using AI as your therapist. I hope that it's going to be informative, but also thought-provoking. Because what I really hope is that you'll share with others and that will start conversations around this idea that people are using AI as a personal therapist and then the dangers that can result from us doing that. So let's go right in. So danger number 1 is that AI can abandon you when you're in crisis mode. So I wanted to start with the most serious one first, because I think it sets the tone for everything that follows. When you're in a mental health crisis, when you're at your most vulnerable, a human therapist has this legal and ethical duty to make sure that you are safe. That is not optional, it's the law. But AI has no obligation. And in practice, research shows that it has failed catastrophically in these moments. So, a 2025 study by Moore and colleagues, it was cited in Psychology Today by Dr. Marilyn Wee. She found that when users, or it was found that when users express suicidal thoughts to several top ranked AI models, some of the bots just ended the conversation. They just stopped. No crisis hotline. No, are you safe now? They disengaged entirely. And clinicians call this abandonment. It's a direct breach of a therapist's duty to respond. But again, AI isn't held to those standards. And here's the example that I can't get out of my head. One user told AI that they had lost their job. They were clearly in distress. And then they asked about bridges in New York City that were taller than 25 meters. Instead of recognizing the suicidal context of that question, the bot provided the exact height of local bridges. So clinicians call this abandonment, a direct breach of the duty to protect. And it's happened and it's dangerous. So number two, and I'm going to try not to butcher this word. Danger number two is the sycophancy loop. Yes, I practiced that one. The sycophancy loop and where it can lead. So one of the core principles of good therapy is that your therapist doesn't just tell you what you want to hear. What? I know. Neither does mine. And neither do I as the therapist. A good therapist is going to push back when needed. They're going to challenge distorted thinking. They're going to hold up a mirror even when the reflection that you see is uncomfortable. AI is literally designed to do the opposite. Think about my experience that I shared. My therapist would have pushed back. She would have held up a mirror for me to reflect, to gain some perspective, and to see it from another angle so that I can work toward understanding and ultimately healing. But there is a well-documented problem in large language models called sycophancy. It means that AI is trained to be agreeable to keep the conversation going. As my friend would say, AI is a you-know-what kisser, because it is. And when that plays out in a mental health context, it can be genuinely dangerous. One body of research cited that if a user expressed a delusion, for example, a harmful false belief like, my father wished I was never born, AI might just agree. Not to be cruel, but to be compliant, to keep you engaged and keep the conversation going and to keep you looped in. Because think about it, that's what the internet does in general. It knows what it needs to show us, what it needs to say to us, and what it needs to do to keep us hooked. Not to be cruel, but to be compliant, to keep you engaged and to keep the conversation going. So that's not therapy. That is an echo chamber. And over time, that kind of unchallenged reinforcement can entrench harmful beliefs, and it can make pathological thinking even worse, not better. Think about it. When you have harmful beliefs and no one challenges those beliefs, like your inner critic, and instead they reinforce them, they're really going to become your truth. And I don't think our inner critics need any reinforcement, does it? So here's where it gets more serious. Researchers Hudson and Stipp published a 2025 framework in the JMIR Mental Health, and it describes something they called AI psychosis. The idea that this intense 24/7 interaction with a non-judgmental AI can blur a person's sense of reality, particularly those who are already kind of prone to psychotic thinking. So it's like a shared madness where a person and a bot co-construct this delusional reality together. And this is not theoretical. In one documented case, a 26-year-old man required hospitalization after months of chatbot interactions that just kept validating his delusions. AI just kept agreeing. So they call it a digital folie deux. Okay, a digital folie deux. It's like a shared madness. In other words, AI just goes in with you and says whatever you need it to say to continue agreeing with you. But in cases of severe psychosis or in cases of ruminating thoughts, that's not really what you want. You want someone to break the pattern, to help you get in there and say, what if those things aren't true? What if your mind is making up this narrative and I need to help you recreate or rewrite your story? So danger number 3 is clinically harmful advice. And this one's so important for those of you who work with or you love someone who's navigating an eating disorder. So there's a concept that researchers call contextual collapse. And it means that AI can't distinguish between a general wellness question and a symptom of serious pathology. So it treats a medical patient, for instance, somebody with a severe eating disorder, the same way that it would treat somebody who is browsing a fitness app. So a real world example would be the National Eating Disorders Association at one point launched an AI chatbot. It was called Tessa, and it was specifically designed to support people with eating disorders. But because Tessa was trained on general wellness data, it recommended calorie deficits and body fat measurements to users who were calling it about anorexia. That advice isn't just unhelpful for someone with that disorder. For someone in the grip of anorexia, it's actually life-threatening. So Tessa was subsequently shut down. A trained clinician in eating disorders wouldn't make that error, but that gap in judgment can actually cost someone their life. So danger number 4, are you with me now? Are you starting to see it sounds good in context, right? Or in theory, but then you start to get into it. And at the end of the day, us always being agreed with is probably not the best thing, right? I mean, we do need someone to challenge us. So danger number 4 is called deceptive empathy and false bonding. So I want you to think about a time someone said something to you that felt warm, but it didn't feel real. You couldn't put your finger on it, but it just kind of felt hollow, like they said it, but they didn't really mean it. And that's what researchers are calling deceptive empathy when it comes to AI. So AI might say things like, oh my gosh, that must be so difficult. I can see why you're struggling. And research from Brown University and Louisiana State University flags that language as what they call mimicry, not genuine understanding. Because these models, they don't experience empathy. They don't have the capacity to feel. They don't have the capacity to experience pain and emotion. AI is not self-aware. So basically, the dangers are that vulnerable users think that they're forming this emotional bond with something that really isn't emotionally in the room, right? Like they know what they should say, but they actually aren't feeling the feels, if you know what I mean. They've been trained to give you something that sounds empathic, but again, AI doesn't really have feelings. It doesn't really have emotions. And so you might form this bond thinking, oh my gosh, they really understand. Claude gets me. But it really doesn't, not in the way that a human would get you. So here we are pouring our heart into a machine. We're in pain. We're seeking relief. And when it responds with something it should say, we believe that it gets us, but it's not fundamentally capable of caring. And it's not a small thing. It's a significant risk, particularly for people who are very lonely or they struggle with attachment. Fake empathy is not going to help them, right? They need a real human. So that one sits heavy, right? When people are lonely and they're getting on and they think, oh, somebody gets them, but it's just a bot. So danger number 5 is your most private data is not safe. So let's talk about something that maybe it doesn't feel as dramatic as the other things that I said, but I think it's pretty important. It's your privacy. Think about what you share in therapy, your deepest fears, your trauma history, your relationship struggles, your worst, most vulnerable moments. And now imagine that information being stored insecurely. It's accessible to other apps on your phone and it's sold to advertisers. And that's not hypothetical. In a 2023 empirical study that examines top rated mental health apps, 74%, 3 out of 4, were classified as security risks. Many of them were found to log personal data and credentials in plain text, meaning that other apps on your device could potentially access your private mental health information. And many use what researchers called linkable IDs, which were identifiers that allowed advertisers to track your mental health journey for targeted profiling. So the bottom line is, the truth is, your pain is being monetized, and a lot of people just have no idea how much and how, seriously their information is being tracked, sold, and monitored. So danger number 6 is the rumination trap. And this one is close to my heart as a clinician because I've seen this pattern and I can see how AI can make it worse, but also because I'm a ruminator, so this spoke to me. So rumination in a nutshell is this habit of cycling through the same painful thoughts over and over and over again. It's one of the most common features of anxiety and depression. And it's one of the most important tools a therapist has, or one of the most important tools, that a therapist has is structure. And structure is that you go to therapy, there's a 50 or 60-minute session, it ends, and then you have to go on with your life. And ideally, you walk away with some tools and some healing and some empathy that will carry you through until the next session. But AI removes that structure. AI is available every second of every day. And for someone who is prone to obsessive or ruminative thinking, that constant access to a compliant, agreeable bot can just get them trapped in more rumination loops. So researchers Hudson and Stipp describe this as leading to what they call digital relational withdrawal, which means that a person retreats further and further into an algorithm mirror. In other words, they keep running back to the computer because the computer is going to keep validating them, keep them hooked, if you will. It's going to get their little hooks in them and keep them coming back for more and more and more and more. And a person who's prone to anxiety and depression because of ruminative thinking needs to get out there into the real world. So instead of gauging in real world connection that's actually necessary for healing, they're going to AI, which is reinforcing the real world social contact that they need. So it's just this really dangerous loop, which rumination itself is a loop. So it makes it even scarier. So danger number 7, no one's accountable. When you see a licensed therapist, there's structure of accountability around that relationship. Your therapist has a license. They can lose that license. They can be reported to a board. They can be held legally liable for malpractice if their treatment causes harm. When AI provides advice that hurts you, there is no board, there is no license, there's no legal framework, and there's no recourse. So research cited in psychiatrist.com makes this point explicitly. It says basically that there's no established regulatory frameworks that hold AI developers professionally accountable if their product mistreats or misguides users. So if you're psychologically harmed by AI's advice, basically you're on your own. The developer might issue a statement, they might update the model, but you don't have a legal safety net. None of the protections that exist when you work with a licensed human clinician. So keep that in mind, because as licensed clinicians, we're held to a lot of standards. We can't just dispense advice, which is why I don't dispense advice on my show. I share some research, I give you some thoughts, but I'm not dispensing professional advice because that would be outside of my scope of practice since I don't know you personally and I don't work with you. So, danger number 8, it's delaying the care that you actually need. So, as a clinician, this bothers me. Using a bot can create a false sense of support. And it can be enough to feel like you're doing something, enough to take the edge off, enough to tell yourself, I'm working on it, or to tell your friends, I'm working on it. And that feeling can keep you from seeking the real human connection, the real help that you need, sometimes during a critical window. So AI currently functions as, at best, as kind of a low quality therapist / friend. It can't recommend hospitalization. It can't prescribe or refer for medication. It can't make clinical judgments that determine whether you're safe. And while someone is pouring their pain into a chatbot at 2 a.m, they might be missing the window when early clinical intervention could change everything. So let me land here. I'm not saying AI has no place in wellness conversations, but I am saying that as a licensed therapist, and as someone who has sat with people during dark moments and who believes that therapy can give you the capacity to heal, I don't think a chatbot is a therapist. It can't hold space the way another human can. It can't be accountable for the way that a licensed professional will be. And in some cases, it can make things worse. So you deserve real support. We all do. You deserve someone who's trained, someone who's accountable and present with you in your experience. If you or someone you love has been relying on AI for mental health support, I want to invite you to reach out to a licensed professional. And if you're not sure where to start, Psychology Today's Therapist Finder is a great resource. So I hope that you'll share this episode. I hope that you'll send it to someone who needs to hear it. And as always, I hope that you'll take care of your strong mind and your strong body. So do let me know if you have any questions about this episode, or feel free to weigh into the chat and give me your thoughts or ideas for the next episode. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for spending time with Strong Mind, Strong Body. Angie will be back with more tools to help you feel strong and centered. Like, share,